So you've been doing some woodworking as a hobby and people are wanting to buy some of your stuff and you don't quite know how to price out or what to charge? I'm gonna give you my formula right here. So write it down while I explain. I know it looks kind of complicated, but I promise, once I explain it, it's super easy. I've been using this formula for years. So let's break it down into parts: material, time, and overhead. Let's start with material. If you have to purchase it, charge for it. Say you get an order for a bar top. They need a 6-foot slab, but the slab that they like at the store is 10 feet long. Don't do the math per foot and only charge for the 6 feet out of the 10-foot slab, because then you get stuck with the price. If you have to buy it, charge for it. Otherwise you eat the cost, and that's not sustainable business. Always overbuy your material by 10% and charge for it. If you are a super planner, let's say you have the amount of material you need down to the inch, add 10% anyway. This accounts for your loss of material due to blade kerf or pieces that need to be 7 feet long and the boards only come in 8-foot pieces and you mess one up, you're out of luck. This is in case pieces get messed up, if you're working around knots or defects, whatever it may be. Now, if you're working with pine 2x4s, this isn't a huge deal. You can always go back and get more, and they'll be pretty close to the same. Where this really starts to matter is if you have a big walnut table, you want all of the boards to have the same tone, and if at all possible, from the same tree. You go to your hardwood dealer, let's say, and you get exactly what you need, and you put it in your shop, and next week, because you have to let it acclimate in your shop for at least 2 weeks, you go back next week and realize you're one board short and because of a knot you didn't see. You go back to the hardware store and all the walnut they have there doesn't match what you have. Do yourself a favor. Charge for the extra 10% of material and buy 10% more of that material. If you're just starting out, you can always buy 20%, but only charge for 10. You learn lessons through your mistakes, but you don't want your client to get less than an amazing product because you messed up. Be sure that material isn't just wood. If you have to buy shelf brackets, a gallon of paint, or a gallon of stain, make sure this is included in your material cost. If you're using paint or stain that you already have, we'll talk about that when we get into the third part, which is overhead. So now we're in part 2, which is your time. This is going to be the hardest part of your equation, and the more experience you get, the easier it's going to be to figure out. When you're first getting started off, you're gonna get this wrong, and you'll probably take a loss, but that's okay. You're learning from each and every opportunity. A lot of guys try to keep track of their hours, and it gets kind of complicated and really messy. So charge a day rate. This is a typical 8-hour day. I would say if you're just starting out, your day rate at a bare minimum should be $150 a day. You don't want to undercut and devalue the work that you're doing for everybody else who's trying to do the same thing too. But how many of us truly have an 8-hour day to work in our shops? My guess, not many of you. Especially if you do this part-time. Your day rate should be a number that is easy to divide. If you're doing this part-time, it's easy to remember the number of evenings after work you spend out in your shop. So if you're just starting out, again at a day rate of $150 a day, it'd be $75 for an evening of 4 hours out in your shop. When you're counting your time, don't charge for time you're waiting for glue, unless you're working on other things during that time. Use your time efficiently. Let your glue up or letting finish dry should be the last thing you do when you leave. Don't get greedy. And as you gain more experience and your projects get better and more complicated, increase your day rate. I've been doing this for 12 years, and I've officially been in business for 7 of those years. My day rate is $350 per day. That means every evening that I am out in my shop, I make $175 that evening. And now we're on part 3. This is the last part, and this is the home stretch, and what most guys skip over, but it's really important. This is so necessary, and I see a lot of guys not do this, and they're actually cheating themselves out of a lot of money that they actually deserve. This extra 10% of the price factors in your tools and your facilities. That means the wear and tear on your tools, the electricity that you use to run those tools, small screws, glue, or small hardware that you use. A lot of guys just think this just comes out of our labor charge. It doesn't. If you were to work a desk job where your tool was a computer, if the computer stops working and it wasn't your fault, that doesn't come out of your pocket. The company you work for plans for those things. You get paid for the work that you do. The business maintains the machinery. So your overhead should be 10% of the labor cost and the material cost. So let's use this formula for a second on, say, cutting boards. You buy $200 in materials, and that should give you enough to make 10 cutting boards, let's say. And that $200 in materials includes your 10% extra of materials because you're planning ahead. So to make 10 cutting boards, that takes you about 1.5 days, or 3 evenings from your shop, 12 hours. That includes milling, cutting, gluing, sanding, and finishing. So you have $200 in materials, you have a day rate of $150 per day, and in 1.5 days, that's $225 in labor and an overhead of $42. That's a total of $467 divided by 10, gives you about $46 per board. So as you use more expensive material and you increase your experience, that price per board goes up. But it's a great baseline, and I would say batch out if you can, because it actually makes you more money. So that's my formula. I've given you all of my secrets, just like Victoria. But see, it's really not that hard to figure out. And I promise the more you use it, the easier it is to calculate, and it's just another tool for you to use in your growing business. Thanks for joining us on another video here at Shepherd's Workbench.